All right, folks, I think I'm live. As always, I'm going to wait for you folks to confirm on chat. So please quickly let me know if the AV is clear, and then we'll get started. In the meantime, let me connect my tablet. Go ahead, people. Please confirm on chat if the AV is clear. All good. Okay, my team's confirmed. It will help if some of you from chat can also chime in. I'll also check my YouTube. Yeah, on my YouTube it looks good, so it should be fine. But still, people on chat, if you can just for my assurance, let me know. All good, folks. Come on. Anyone from chat? There are quite a few of you in this session. Awesome. Thank you, Nitin. Thanks for confirming. Okay. All right, people. Let's get started. Sorry for the delay. A little couple of minutes late. Just struggling with technical issues. Let's get started. So by now you should be familiar with the series because this is our sixth episode in the VRC Blitzkrieg series for CAT 24. Okay. So if you're not aware of VRC Blitzkrieg, I'll quickly tell you what we do here. We discuss the questions from CAT 23. Okay. So VRC questions from CAT 23 is what I discuss in these live sessions. If it's an RC session, I discuss 2 RCs with questions. If it's verbal ability, we discuss the verbal ability questions of a particular slot. So for today, it's going to be verbal ability for slot 2. We're going to discuss all the 8 questions of verbal ability. We'll solve them live together, and I'll explain that, of course. Till now, we've covered slot 1, RCs and verbal ability. Slot 2 RCs have been covered. So today we're covering verbal ability, and then we'll have 3 more live sessions for slot 3. Okay, and then we'll wrap it up. So we do this every year. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll find like CAT 22, CAT 21, and 20 as well. I've been doing it since 2020. Okay, so it's a live session. It's going to be very interactive. For verbal ability, there is no preparation required. I'll show you the question. You can solve it. I'll run a poll, and then we'll discuss it. And then I'll solve your doubts. Okay, it's as simple as that. Please definitely interact with me on chat. I say this in all my classes, right? Whether it's on YouTube or on the 2IM class. It's very important for you folks to interact because that's how you learn. And an interactive session is fun for both of us. All right. Okay. So definitely interact. There's a very annoying lag on YouTube, but on chat, but we'll manage that. Okay. All right. Now, before we begin, for non-2IM students, of course, if you're a 2IM student, then this message is irrelevant for you. But if you're a non-2IM student, we have a crash course. Okay. Where you can see the details on the screen. This is a crash course for 24. It's starting on August 12th. Okay, so we'll be in the crash course, we'll be covering the entire curriculum, of course, in an expedited manner. It's a crash course, right? But the entire CAT 24 curriculum will be covered. So you can see what we provide. We provide 80 plus live sessions, right? We cover everything from basics to advanced. So the entire curriculum is covered, but in a very rapid way, right? So you'll have pretty much sessions every day, including the weekend. It's a very intense course, but very, very exciting because it's very intense, very interactive. It's online. Okay, so along with the live sessions, you'll also be given all our self-paced material and our mocks as well. Okay, so the mock series, everything is included. GDPI is included in this as well. So it's a very good deal. It covers your CAT preparation end to end. So people who are starting now, this is a beautiful course that you can go for. Live sessions, online content, mocks, practice questions, GDPI, everything is covered. Okay. So it starts on August 12th. This is your last chance to sort of get a crash course from 2IM. After this, we don't have any batches, but you can go for it. There's a very nice Dilwale Dulhania meme as well, which is very interesting. I just saw it. But yeah, definitely contact us if you need more details, and the fee details are in chat as well. Okay, awesome. So the promotional message is over. I will get started now with the questions. This is how we're going to do. We're going to start with para summary. Okay, I'll show you the first para summary question. You solve it on your own. All right. I'll run a poll, mark it in the poll, and then we'll discuss it. Now, before we begin with para summary, quickly I'll give you an idea of what is the best way to approach this question. Okay, I'll give you the basics now, and then I'll discuss the question in detail. See, when I show you the question, right, first you read the paragraph. Okay, create the main points in your head first. Don't look at the options. Read the paragraph, extract the main points, because you have to summarize the main points. That's the objective of a para summary, right? So read the para summary, understand it, extract the main points. There can be one main point, there can be two main points, there can be three main points. Typically, it's 1 to 3. Extract the main points in your head or write it down, whatever works for you. And then once you have that, then you look at the options and see what covers the maximum main points. Okay, so first create that shadow answer, extract the main points yourself, then look at the options. And when you're evaluating options, watch out for options that are inconsistent with what is mentioned in the paragraph. Okay, that's very important. That's how they trap you. So eliminate those options that are inconsistent and then look for the option that best covers the maximum main points. Okay, so this is a strategy in brief. I can't go into detail because of interest of time, but I will cover more of it when we solve the question, when I explain it to you. Okay, so this is a question. You can start solving. I will run the poll. Please mark it in the poll. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can put them in chat. I'll keep coming back to them. Go for it, people. The poll is up. Take your time. Don't rush. Okay, focus on accuracy. Okay, keep solving, people. Let's take one more minute and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, 1 minute is a lot, so don't rush, but I will let you know when there are 30 seconds and then 10 seconds as well. But yeah, and we'll wrap it up in a minute. You folks are very quiet on chat today. tell me what's happening. If you don't have a question, and if you're done solving this question, you can probably, let's talk about what happened last night at the Olympics. What was your reaction? I'm just making small talk, but let me know. I watched it yesterday because of Neeraj Chopra and all of that, and of course the hockey ceremony as well. But let me know what you folks think about it. Hello, Serene Sea Monster. Good to see you back. I wish I could know your name, but no pressure on YouTube. No pressure to reveal your identity, but good to see you here. Okay, people, I'm going to end the poll in 10 seconds. Okay. Hi, Janvi. All right, we are done with the poll. Let's look at the results now. Hi, Rishav. Okay, good to see the interaction levels going up. Thank you, folks. Let me end the poll now. All right. Okay, so look at the way you voted. There's a majority there, right? 73% is saying that the answer is 2. All right. 13% is saying 1. 13% is saying 3 as well. So let's mark it as the second choice, and then no takers for 4. Okay. When it's VA, the number of people in live reduces. MRL gaming, which is funny, because in the past years the number used to go up. People usually find VA more exciting and interactive, right? RC can be a little dry. So yeah, well, this year it's a little different. RC has more audience. But anyway, let's come back to it. So this is how you voted. Now let's discuss this, right? Now this is the first para summary of slot 2. Of course, I've discussed it. We've done slot 1. But I'll touch on the strategy as a little bit. I can't go into detail because of in the interest of time, but I will cover the strategy as well. So let's solve this. Pay attention here. And if you have any questions, you can put them in chat. So first we'll read the paragraph and we'll extract the main points. Okay. All right. So it says heat waves are becoming longer, frequent and intense due to climate change. All right. Okay. The impact of extreme heat are unevenly experienced, with older people and young children, those with pre-existing medical conditions and on low income, significantly more vulnerable. Interesting, right? So it's saying that first it says that heat waves are becoming, more and more frequent and intense because of climate change, and it is unevenly experienced among the population. There are groups of people that are more vulnerable. That's how you keep consolidating the points. So till now, it's saying that it's becoming more and more intense and frequent, and there are groups of people who are more vulnerable to it. Okay, like older people, young children, so on and so forth. Let's continue. Keep consolidating the main points in your head. Adaptation to heat waves is a significant public policy concern. All right. Research conducted among at-risk people in the UK reveals that even vulnerable people do not perceive themselves as at risk of extreme heat. Okay. Therefore, early warnings of extreme heat events do not perform as intended. So now see, it's interesting, right? So what the author now is saying is that this is a significant policy concern, adaptation to heat waves, and research clearly shows that even the vulnerable people do not perceive themselves as at risk. So people are not taking it seriously, or people don't understand the risk clearly. It's clearly very risky. It says it's a significant public policy concern, government policy concern, right? But the people at risk, the vulnerable population, also doesn't perceive it as a significant risk, and that's a problem, right? When the population perceives, so for instance, COVID, when you perceive it as a serious risk, you will take steps to avoid it. But if you don't perceive it as a serious risk, then you'll take it lightly. So that's a concern, right? Let's continue. This suggests that understanding how extreme heat is narrated is very important. People don't perceive it as a significant risk. So the narration, the communication matters, is what the sentence is saying. The news media play a central role in this process and can help warn people about the potential danger, as well as about impact on infrastructure and society. So this last part talks about the communication, the narration of the severity of heat waves and the impact. That is very important. What is the problem? The problem is people are not perceiving this as a significant risk. And that's a significant public policy concern. What is the potential solution that the author is suggesting? That media here, obviously, because it's about communication, it's a communication issue. So media plays an important role. If media, if that plays an important role, and how it is communicated, how it is narrated is very important. All right. So now let's extract the main points here. Think about this. Always try to identify a structure in what you've read. You can do this in RC also. I tell my students this. If you can figure out some kind of broad structure, it will help you in comprehension. So often you will see in RCs, it can be a problem solution structure. The author talks about a problem, then the author gives solutions. Or it can be a pros and cons structure. The author has takes up a topic, discusses the pros and cons, and maybe in the conclusion gives its viewpoint. So RCs can have different structure. In this para summary, I don't know if you were able to identify it, but it is actually a problem solution structure. Right? Think about it. What is the problem? What is the problem? You can tell me in chat. Because of the lag, I can't sort of wait for it. But what is the problem? Problem is that the perception of risk due to heat waves is off. My writing is horrible. The perception of risk of heat waves is off. The vulnerable population even doesn't perceive it as severe. It is very severe in reality, but their perception is off. They don't perceive it as a significant risk. That's a problem. What is the solution? The solution is communication. And here the media, the communication narration and the media plays a very important role because it's all about communication. So it is a problem solution structure, if you think about it. So the main point, if I would tell you, right, there are actually three points here. One is that heat waves are a very big problem and it's unevenly experienced, right? So the first part, it's unevenly experienced. There are certain groups which are vulnerable to it. That's the first main point. Second is the problem that even the vulnerable population does not perceive this as a significant risk. And third is the solution, where media plays a very important role because it's a communication issue. Okay, out of these 3 points, I would say 2 and 3 is more important because that's the problem and solution. 1 can be considered as context, but I would say 1 is also a main point. So we have 3, 1, 2, and 3. I would say 2 and 3 are more important than 1. Okay, all right. So this is how you create a shadow answer. You have the main points. You can either write it down or you can have mental notes. And now let's look at an option which best summarizes the main points. What we do with options is we always look at options and first we eliminate. We eliminate based on inconsistencies. If you find an option that is inconsistent with the paragraph, eliminate it. And always break up an option and then check for inconsistencies. Let me demonstrate it. Okay, number 1, protection from heat waves is important. Okay, break it up. Is this consistent? Yes, it is. It is important. And the paragraph clearly says that. But current reports and public policies seem ineffective. Is this consistent? Ask yourself. But current reports and public policies seem ineffective. Is the author saying public policies are ineffective? No. The author says the problem is in the perception. They're not, the vulnerable population does not perceive this as a risk. But the author doesn't say public policies are ineffective. No, the author is not blaming public policies for it. It says it's a significant public policy concern. But saying that public policies are ineffective, that's a stretch. The author doesn't touch on that. Right? The solution is not that public policies are not effective and they need to be more effective. No, it's a communication issue and media plays a central role. So the author is not blaming public policies here. Okay? And where is the media bit? The solution is all about communication and media. That part is completely missing. So anyway, we'll get into that later. Right now, look for inconsistencies. Okay, between A and B, B is inconsistent. We're going to eliminate that. Right now, we're just looking for inconsistencies and eliminating. Okay, all right. Let's go to 2. Heat waves pose an enormous risk. Definitely, this is consistent. The media plays a pivotal role in alerting people to this danger. This is inconsistent. This is consistent as well. Both are consistent. Now, whether this is a good summary or not, we'll come to that later. Right now, we're eliminating. You cannot eliminate 2. Because 2 is consistent with the paragraph. Okay, so we'll park it. Let's go to 3. People are vulnerable to heat waves caused due to climate change. Yes, this is consistent. Very good. Measures taken are ineffective. Again, a problem. The author is not criticizing the measure. Somebody says that. Lokesh, correct. Think about it. Is the author criticizing measures? No. It may look like that to you, but look at the paragraph very clearly. The author is not criticizing measures. The author is saying this is a problem. People don't perceive it. Media plays a great role. The author is not criticizing anything. So saying measures taken are ineffective is inconsistent with the paragraph. So we're going to eliminate that. Okay, let's go to 4. News stories help in warning about heat waves. Okay, this is consistent, but they have to become more effective. Very interesting. Now, saying news stories are not effective right now. Think about it. Is the author saying that media is not effective right now? Media needs to become more effective? Is the author somewhere criticizing media? Ask yourself that. Let's read the sentence, last sentence. This suggests that understanding how extreme heat is narrated is very important. The news media plays a central role in this process and can help warn people about the potential danger as well as impact. Where does the author criticize media? The author is saying the news media plays a central role in this process. Media is important here. The author is not criticizing and saying media needs to be more effective. So if you sort of took that as an inference, then that inference is wrong. There is no evidence to support that. The author is not criticizing. It's a tricky one. But the author is not criticizing media. The author is simply saying media plays an important role. Okay? So I wouldn't even say that it's kind of like I mean, it is, whether you call it a solution or you say that, okay, fine, the importance of media. Right? So the author is not criticizing that. So 4 is also gone. The only option that works is 2. And that's why it's the answer. Okay, heat waves pose an enormous risk. The media plays a pivotal role in alerting people to this danger. Now, see, the answer 2 is not certain. It's not the complete summary, but you're not going to get perfect answers in VRC. You have to choose the best answer available. 1, 3, and 4 are inconsistent. 2 is not inconsistent. Now, 2 is the only option with you. Could there have been a better summary? Absolutely. Definitely. But we have 2, which is the best answer. It may not look satisfying, but it's the only option which is consistent here. And hence 2 is the answer. Okay. All right. Awesome. So now understand the strategy again, right? Next time when you do it, follow this. Extract the main points. And when you're looking for options, do it in 2 steps. 1, look at the option, break it up, as I did, and look for inconsistencies. If it's inconsistent, eliminate it. Out of the remaining options, choose the best option. Here we only had 1 option because all 3 got eliminated. But you can always have 2, 3 options remaining, and then you have to choose the best summary. Okay. All right. Let me see if there are questions. People of different age group have different research tells that even the vulnerable people are not a greater risk. Media plays a vital role. Okay, Nitin, fair enough. But the second sentence, research tells that even the vulnerable people are not at greater risk. That's not true. People are at greater risk. They just don't perceive the risk correctly. Okay, so just watch out for that. Okay. All right, let's go to the next question. I will run the poll and we will start. Yeah, somebody's saying that, Lokesh is saying, I always say that don't neglect VA. Absolutely. Folks, do not, for the love of God, please, and you can see I'm very passionate about this, do not make the mistake of neglecting verbal ability. I don't know where this approach comes from. Probably it comes from people are borrowing stuff from quant, because in quant you can skip topics, right? There is nothing to skip in VRC. You prepare for RC, you prepare for VA. In the exam, you attempt both the sections, subsections. I'm not saying attempt all the questions, but you should be ready to attempt all the, whichever is manageable, you attempt it. So please prepare for VA. VA can be very profitable. 8 questions. You have 24 marks. You can, if you learn the right strategies and if you practice enough, 12 marks out of 24 is quite possible because 4 questions are usually manageable. 12 marks in VRC is a lot. Okay, and you can get that quicker as compared to RC. It takes less time if you've prepared in the right way. Do not ignore verbal ability, please. Okay, all right. Okay, answer the question now. If you're enjoying the session so far, please hit the like button. It just helps us become more visible on YouTube. So please do that on the live stream. Oh, okay, Yash. All right. Yeah, I understand. I understand. Okay, good to know though. I can now I can remember this. Yeah, the anonymity in YouTube is good. I agree with you. It's always good to have these alt accounts, right? But anyway, I'll remember your name now. Okay, people. Let's take a minute more, and then we'll start discussing. All right, people. Last 20 seconds. Okay, I'll end the poll now. Did I end the poll? 1 second. Okay, that's weird. 1 second. Yeah, I can see it here. Okay. 1 second, folks. Right. So you folks are a little split in this case. Okay, you can see that we are looking at 50% for 1. Okay, that's your first choice. 36% for 3. That is your second choice. Okay. 13% for 4. That is your third choice. And then no takers for 2. Okay, did I get this right? I did. Okay. Hold on 1 second. I'll just adjust my screen. This is better. Okay. Right. Now it is a little tricky, right? This is a trickier one than the previous one. I think the language in the paragraph is a little trickier. The options might be more confusing as well. Okay, let's look at it. Now, what does it say? Sorry. Okay, let's read this. People spontaneously create counterfactual alternatives to reality when they think if only or what if, and imagine how the past could have been different. Okay, so again, if the word counterfactual is confusing you, don't panic when you see unfamiliar words. You can understand counterfactual with the context here. Okay, counterfactual, again, it's against factual. Counter, the root counter means against, so it's against factual. Okay, or not factual, that's what it means, right? So it says people spontaneously create counterfactual alternatives to reality when they think if only or what if, and imagine how the do this. You can relate it to what if, like you can look back at CAT 23 and say, what if I had attempted more questions in VRC? What if I had prepared better for CAT 23? You're creating counterfactual alternatives to reality. We all do that. Okay, and it says people spontaneously create that. The mind computes counterfactuals for many reasons. So now the author is getting into reasons as to why the mind does that. Counterfactuals explain the past and prepare for the future. Okay, great. They implicate various relations, including causal ones, and they affect intentions and decisions. So these are the reasons as to why the mind computes counterfactuals. The author is getting into that. They modulate emotions. So the reasons continue. They modulate emotions such as regret and relief, and they support moral judgments such as blame. So this is completely reasons. Okay, so first the author said that people spontaneously create counterfactuals, right? There are many reasons as to why the mind does that, and then the author gets into those reasons, right? Finally, the author says the ability to create counterfactuals develops throughout childhood and contributes to reasoning about other people's beliefs, including their false beliefs. Again, there are 3 parts to this paragraph. All right, again, I'll just break it up. This is part 1. where it says that people spontaneously create counterfactual alternatives to reality by asking questions like if only or what if, and imagining about the past. Okay. Then the author says this happens due to many reasons, and then the author explains those reasons. And then the third part is that this ability develops through childhood. And what is the usefulness of this ability? It contributes to reasoning about other people's beliefs, including their false beliefs. So that's how it helps. Okay, so spontaneous creation of counterfactual alternatives, the reasons why the mind does that, the ability develops through childhood, and how does it impact? It contributes to reasoning. These are the three parts of the paragraph. So if I were to tell you, there are three main points here. Okay, now I hope you agree. If you have questions, let me know. I haven't written it down, but these are the three parts. Okay, let me know if you agree. Just give me a thumbs up or ask me a question. Now let's go to evaluating the options. Okay, so we'll break it up and look for inconsistencies. All right, so Raghavendra has a doubt. I'll answer that. I hope the summary is clear. Let me know if it's clear. Okay, or if you want me to write it down, I can write it down as well. But again, quickly repeating it, we spontaneously create counterfactuals by imagining about the past. There are many reasons as to why the mind computes it. This ability develops through childhood and contributes to reasoning. These are the main points. Let's now break up the options and look for inconsistencies. People create counterfactual alternatives to reality for various reasons, okay, including reasoning about other people's beliefs. Okay, so A and B. All right, let's look at this. People create counterfactual alternatives to reality for various reasons, including reasoning about other people's beliefs. Is it consistent? Look at A and B, really critically evaluate it. I'm not telling you whether this is the right answer or not, but I want to know if it's consistent for the paragraph. Approach it with an open mind, irrespective of your answer. Tell me if it's consistent. I'll wait for your answers. Raghavendra says, I don't think so. I think his doubt is connected to that. So let me read that. In the first option, the content of the same stresses upon the idea that people would definitely want to reason about other people's beliefs, and hence they create CF alternatives. Okay. So basically, Raghavendra is saying that B seems to be inconsistent. Is reasoning a reason for creating counterfactual alternatives? It says, for various reasons, including reasoning. Does the mind create counterfactual alternatives to reason about other people's beliefs? Is it a reason? Or is it the impact? The reasons are here, right? Explain the past, prepare for the future. Okay. Modulating emotions and all of that. And it says that it contributes to reasoning about other people's beliefs. It's the impact, right? It's not a reason. The reason for creating counterfactual alternatives is not reasoning about people's beliefs. The impact is that. So that's number one. And tell me one thing, saying that people create counterfactual alternatives, are people consciously creating counterfactual alternatives? Like the option makes it seem like that people are creating this, right? But it's happening spontaneously. So it's not in our control, right? It's not like we are sitting here and saying, oh, I want to create a counterfactual alternative. We're not going with that intention. We spontaneously do that. It's a part of our nature. It's a part of the human psyche to do what if and if else. But we don't consciously say, oh, I'm going to sit and now create a counterfactual alternative to reality. We probably don't even realize it's counterfactual. So that spontaneity part is very important, which is missing in one. And also, I think the main problem is that this is not a reason. This is an impact. It's a very tricky option. So I'm not surprised it's your first answer. Okay, I hope you understood this. That's why I'll give you a tip right now. Always break up options and critically evaluate them. Okay, here you have to be like, this is a tricky option. But if you break it up and ask yourself, okay, is this a reason? No, it's not a reason, it's an impact. And also, where's the part about spontaneity? This makes it seem like people are deliberately doing it. So it's inconsistent, and hence it's not the answer. Okay, so break it up and learn from it. All right, let's go to number 2. So counterfactual thinking has to reverse past. Is this consistent? Does the paragraph say it helps to reverse past? Absolutely not. So I'm glad you didn't pick this. This is outright inconsistent. Counterfactual thinking doesn't help to reverse past. I mean, that's like something else. That's not what the para is saying. Okay. Counterfactual alternatives to reality are created for a variety of reasons. Okay. Is this consistent? Yes. They are created for a variety of reasons and is part of one's developmental process. Is this consistent? Yes, it is. The ability to create counterfactuals develops throughout childhood. This is consistent. Let's park it. Okay. Counterfactuals help people to prepare for the future. Is this consistent? Let's see. Yes, it is. Okay. Prepare for the future. By understanding intentions and making decisions, this is also consistent. All right. So now we have 2 options which are consistent, 3 and 4. Okay. So first step is read the paragraph, extract the main points. Second step is eliminate. Third step is out of the remaining options that you haven't eliminated, choose the best summary. Between 3 and 4, which one do you think is the best summary? The answer is 3. 4 is focusing on a specific point of the paragraph. 3 covers the maximum main points. It talks about variety of reasons and it also talks about developmental process. Whereas 4 focuses on only one specific point. 3 is a better option because it's covering the maximum main points. So in step 3 of the strategy, out of the remaining options, choose the option that covers the maximum main points. That's a better summary. And again, you will not have a perfect answer. Look for the best answer. The best answer is 3. Okay, good. Let's see. Raghavendra is saying, the second option reminds me of that particular episode in the Adventures of Jackie Chan. Okay, all right. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it's about reversing past and stuff. I'm not familiar with that, but I think I'm sure. Jackie Chan, of course, I remember his movies. I'm surprised is Jackie Chan in your generation? Is Jackie Chan was he popular in your generation? I thought this was my generation. I'm surprised that you folks know. I mean, it's popular in your generation. But anyway, the answer is 3. Okay. So now if you went wrong here, always analyze why you went wrong, what was the reason, and then fix it for the next one. Of course. Okay. All right. Okay. Perfect, people. So now let's go to, we'll quickly move on to the next question, which is Parajumble. Solve this on your own. All right. And then when I'm explaining the first question, I'll explain the strategy a little bit as well. Okay. Okay. Let me start the poll. Yeah, Raghavendra, I'll answer your question. Let me just start this poll. And oh no, there is no poll here. There can't be any poll. It's a Parajumble. Sorry. You'll just have to type your answer in chat. Okay. Take your time and put your answer in chat, and then we'll discuss it. So another doubt. Generally speaking, how does CF help prepare for future? Okay, so Raghavendra, I'm just trying to understand a question. You're asking, like, you're saying beyond the paragraph? Is that what you're asking? Just trying to understand it. Beyond the paragraph or sticking to the paragraph? Beyond. Okay. Beyond counterfactuals, how do let's think about it. Okay, while you folks solve the question. Of course, we shouldn't, like, by the way, I'm sure you know this already. When you're solving questions, don't go beyond. Okay, because the moment you go beyond, then your answers will be wrong. But anyway, as a general discussion, definitely don't go beyond when you're solving questions. But how do counterfactuals help prepare for future? I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe like, you're probably analyzing your mistakes, right? What if I had, in CAT 23, I ignored verbal ability. I made a mistake. What if I hadn't done that? What if I had prepared for verbal ability aggressively, learned the right strategies and practiced? My VRC score in 23 would have been much better. So you're analyzing your past, right? You're analyzing your mistakes. That's helping you prepare for the future. You won't repeat that mistake. If you're conscious about it through a counterfactual, oh, I would have gotten a 99 percentile if had I focused on VA. That will encourage you to not make the same mistake. So maybe that's how it's preparing. Okay, I don't know. Let me know if makes sense. I think if it's a mistake, right, you're focusing on, or a regret, it can help you prepare for the future, right? Okay, solve this, folks, and then let me know your answers in chat. Do hit the like button if you're enjoying it on YouTube, so that it sort of goes to more people. Somebody told me the Jackie Chan is a cartoon series. Okay, so that's how it's popular. Makes sense. If you're a Jackie Chan fan, you should go and watch his movies from the 80s and 90s. They're hilarious. Like, I think there was one movie called Armor of God, if I'm not wrong. Hilarious movie. Of course, it's a 80s, 90s movie. So, the production won't be as good, but it's a hilarious movie. I think it had several, it had a sequel as well. Type your answers in chat, people, when you're ready. Okay, so the answers have started coming in. Go ahead, people. Just type your answers. I'll wait for a few more and then we'll start discussing. Okay, let's have a couple more answers. Okay, so Shalom Christie saying, I know 4-3 makes a pair, but I have trouble with to put 0.2. Okay, fair enough. Okay, Yash Maha and then Balakrishnan have responded as well. Okay, I'll wait for like maybe 30 more seconds and then I'll start discussing. Oh yeah, we were discussing Olympics. Somebody said Olympics has lost its authenticity. I agree. I agree. It's been a mess, royal mess this year, right? In Paris, athletes running out of food. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, you have athletes and they don't have enough protein to eat. And it's in France, which is a first world country. So God knows what's happening there. It's a skip question for me. Why should it be a skip question? It's a theta question. Type in the answer. Okay. You should not spend, if you're finding it difficult, you should not spend a lot of time on it, but maybe spend 45 seconds, 1 minute and type in something and move on. right? And then hope to God that your tukka is right. Okay. You can still attempt it, but don't spend a lot of time on it if you find it difficult. Okay. All right. Let's start discussing. So Parajumbles, again, I can't cover the strategy in detail in the session, but what I can, I'll briefly explain it to you. Okay. So the first thing is start reading the sentences, and always read each sentence and extract some sense out of it, because it helps you to establish links. Now, the sentences can come out of nowhere, right? Because they're jumbled up, but still extract some sense out of each sentence that you're reading and read it completely so that you can help create links. Okay. So what we do is we start reading the sentences, extract some sense out of it. We identify whether this can be a starter statement or not, the first statement. And also we keep identifying links in the background. Okay. All right. Contemporary African writing, like the bottled leopard, voices this theme using two children and two backgrounds to juxtapose two varying cultures. Again, try to extract some sense out of it. It's talking about some African writing. Probably it's the name of a book, highlighted in quotes. It says voices this theme. This clearly indicates that there is a preceding sentence. This can't be the starter statement. This theme meaning what theme? If the sentence is throwing a question at you, that means there is a precedent. So what theme? We don't know. That means a statement before that has to clarify that. Now, what is the theme? How does it do that? Using two children and two backgrounds to juxtapose two varying cultures. So it's comparing two cultures side by side. That's what juxtaposition means. So extracting some sense out of it. This can't be a starter statement. Let's continue. Okay, I'm going to obviously I can't pronounce this name. This seems like I don't know what it is, but EK explores the conflict and casts the Western tradition as condescending, enveloping, and unaccommodating towards local African practice. Okay, so we don't know what's happening here, but there is an entity that explores the conflict and casts the Western tradition as condescending, enveloping, and unaccommodating towards local African practice. Okay, so the Western world or the Western world is being portrayed as something that is condescending towards local African culture. Okay, all right, let's continue. Can this be a starter statement? Maybe, but we don't know what conflict. Okay, so unlikely. However, their views contradict the reality. For a rich and sustaining local African culture, ethos exists for all who care to see and experience. However, very unlikely to be the starter statement. You need a preceding statement. Okay, so however, their views contradict the reality. Okay, so we don't know whose views. For a rich and sustaining local African culture exists for all who care to see and experience. Okay, so probably, the author is saying the reality is that the African culture is very rich and sustaining, but their views contradict it. So maybe the views don't consider the African culture as rich and sustaining, but it needs a precedent. It can't be the starter statement. We're left with 4. Western Christian concepts tend to deny or feign ignorance about the existence of a genuine and enduring indigenous African tradition. This has to be the starter statement. And it's a good candidate for a starter statement. It's a generic statement, right? There are no pronouns also. What is the statement saying? Tend to deny or feign ignorance about the existence of a genuine and enduring indigenous African tradition. They don't consider, okay, or they deny the existence of an African tradition. Typical Western mentality, right? Anything which is not Western for them is inconsequential, is insignificant. So they deny it. Either they deny it or they act as if they're ignorant about the existence of a genuine African culture. They deny its existence. They illegitimize the existence of African tradition. This is definitely the starter statement. Okay. Now, what is the most obvious link in this? So when you've identified the starter statement, now you have to identify links. Ask yourself, what is the most obvious link? See, there is a word however here, right? However is a transition word which connects two contradictory ideas or two opposing ideas, right? However is a transition word. Even yet is like that. So here the statement is saying that the reality is that the culture is rich, but the views contradict this reality. Do we have a statement which has this contradicting view? Think about it. Yes, it's 4. 4 is saying Western Christian concepts deny the existence of an African tradition. 3 is saying the reality is that the African culture is rich. So 4-3 is definitely a consecutive link. And we know that 4-4 is the starter and 4-3 is the link. What are the two possible options remaining now? Tell me. 4-3 is definitely a consecutive link. It starts with 4. What are the two possible options? Ask yourself. 2-1 or 1-2, right? So either it can be 4-3-1-2 or 4-3-2-1. If you land up in a situation like this in the exam, it's fantastic. Now you read both of them, 4-3-1-2 and 4-3-2-1, and ask yourself which one makes more sense from a flow perspective. In Parajumbles, the flow of ideas is paramount. If the flow is not making sense, then your answer is wrong. The paragraph has to flow seamlessly. Ask yourself what is better. Open mind, forget your answer and ask yourself, is 4-3-1-2 better or 4-3-2-1 better? Open mind, okay? Forget your answers and evaluate it and then tell me. Okay, can you guess what is this or what's happening here? Of course, don't Google it. What is that? The thing, the part that I wasn't able to pronounce. And explores the conflict. What conflict? That what's happening there? The phrase. Raghavinder, you seem to be getting it. People, what is that? Think about it. I'm giving you a hint. I'm going to say CI, okay, so that I don't butcher the pronunciation anymore. CI explores the conflict and casts the Western tradition as condescending, enveloping, and accommodating towards local African practice. Explores the conflict. Doesn't it make it sound like that this is a person? Somebody's exploring the conflict, right? So it can either be a book or it can be a person. We've already spoken about a book. Can this be a person? And if this is a person, is this connected to one? This is most likely the author of that book. We don't know. We're not bringing in external knowledge. I haven't even Googled it. Now, the trick there is it's an African name. We don't know how African name sounds like, just as how Africans don't understand what is Jatin or Janvi or Balakrishnan. But connected. CI explores the conflict. It's probably the author of Bottled Leopard. And it makes sense, right? It says, contemporary African writing like the Bottled Leopard voices this theme, using two children and two backgrounds to juxtapose two varying cultures. It broadly speaks about this book. 2 is giving you details about it. It's a general to specific flow, which is very common in parajumbles and paragraphs. Paragraphs flow from general to specific, not always, but it's a very common flow. That's how authors write it. It's a very broad overview of the book. This is giving you details. Explores the conflict, casts the Western tradition, and then brings an African. So that's why it's 4-3-1-2. The tricky one. But the thing here is it's a general to specific flow. Okay. And also here it says voices this theme, that this theme is very clear in 4-3. So then you can introduce the book, you can talk about this theme, and then 2 gives you more details about the book, which has been referred to in 1. So it's a general to specific flow. The answer is 4-3-1-2. Now, one tip that I'll give you here is with Parajumble, this is very common what happened here. A lot of you said 4-3-2-1. What happened? The last 2 digits got exchanged. It's very common in Parajumbles. Very, very common. I don't know why this happens, but it happens a lot. The last 2 digits get interchanged. So that's why I always tell my students, there is a last step in Parajumbles. You should spend 20 seconds on this step. When you're done with your answer, okay, and you're like, okay, 4-3-2-1 is my answer. Take 15-20 seconds to evaluate and quickly check if there is another possible combination. And if you know that you're making this mistake of interchanging last 2 digits, do a versus 4-3-2-1 versus 4-3-1-2. Do a quick versus. Read the statements quickly and see which flow makes better sense. That's step 3 of doing a versus with your answer and other potential combinations can boost your accuracy. So always incorporate step 3. Just spend 15-20 seconds on that. And if there is a pattern in your mistakes, right, that you're always interchanging this, you can quickly try that. Some people interchange the start and the end, whatever your pattern is, that you'll have to identify. Okay, so do step 3. All right, people, let's go to the next one. Follow the strategy now that we've discussed. And doesn't the conflict follow the West's tradition? Okay, let's quickly look at this. Doesn't the conflict follow the West's tradition? Right. Doesn't the conflict follow the West tradition? Explores the conflict. So you're saying 4-3-2-1, but you're saying the conflict follows the West. Which we have conflict in Western tradition here. Oh, so you're saying that the conflict is referring to this, is it? That person explores the conflict and hence voices it through the book as a medium. No, I think what's happening here is, see, the conflict is clear in these sentences, right? The conflict is clear in 4 and 3. The West has a conflict with African tradition that is very clear in 4 and 3. So the conflict is referring to that. Okay. And also, see, it says the bottle leopard voices this theme. Look at one. It's a very general overview of the book. Using 2 children, 2 backgrounds to juxtapose 2 varying cultures. Very general overview. And then it gives details saying the author explores the conflict, which is explained in 4 and 3, and gives you details about the book. So the conflict, in my opinion, is referring to the conflict mentioned in 4 and 3. And we're going from a general overview of the book to details about it. Therefore, 1-2 makes more sense. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Solve this and send me the answers. Do step 3 now. Okay, do a versus with other potential combinations and see if your accuracy improves. Go for it, people. Raghavendra, think about this. How does a flow make sense? You're saying that the author talks about it, and then you're bringing up the book. See, if the statement about the bottled reality had a reference to the author in any way, then it would have made sense. But that statement, and you can read the statement again, the statement about the book, the sentence about the book doesn't refer to the author in any way, like their book or something like that. There's no reference there. So that flow won't make sense. Okay. What you're saying is correct. We can do that. That's also a possibility. But here, the general to specific flow makes more sense because there is no reference to the author in the sentence about the book. Okay. So that's why I would stick to that. Right. The other way, it's a little abrupt. Okay. But yeah, I think fair enough what you're saying. Authors can, of course, write in different ways, but here this makes more sense. Sorry about that. Is it okay now? Okay, let's have a couple more answers and then we'll start discussing. Okay. All right, let's discuss it. It's a little difficult to track time, but I hope you folks are ready to discuss it. Let's talk about it. Okay. All right. There are several answers that you've given me. 4231. Then, sorry about that. Okay. 1 second. Sorry. It's annoying, I know, but I have a dog at home. It's like dog hair everywhere. Sorry about that. Okay, so you're 4231. Okay. 4132. That's what I'm seeing. Okay, so either I'm seeing 4231 or 4132. Okay, let's look at it. All right. Okay. So we'll read the sentences. Okay. Extract some sense out of it, identify whether it's can be a starter statement or not, and come up with links. At the end, we'll do that quick versus. All right. Like the ants make up a colony, no single neuron holds complex information like self-awareness, hope, or pride. Okay, like the ants, so it's comparing it to how ants make up a colony. You don't have a single neuron holding complex information. You potentially have a collection of neurons, is probably what the sentence is saying. Okay, and it's talking about complex information like self-awareness, hope, or pride. All right, it's comparing it to ants in a colony. Can this be a starter statement? It's possible. Okay, it's possible. It could be a candidate for a starter statement. All right, so I'm just going to write S here. Although the human brain is not yet understood enough to identify the mechanism by which emergence functions, most neurobiologists agree that complex interconnections among the parts give rise to qualities that belong only to the whole. All right. So lots going on in this statement. Extract some broad sense out of it. It's saying that the human brain is not yet understood to identify the mechanism by which emergence functions. We don't know what emergence is. But most neurobiologists agree that complex interconnections among the parts give rise to qualities that belong only to the whole. All right. Okay. Can this be a starter statement? Potentially. Okay. It could be. All right. Nonetheless, the sum of neurons in the nervous system generate complex human emotions like fear and joy, none of which can be attributed to a single neuron. Nonetheless is also a transition word. Nonetheless is like in spite of. Okay, understand it. Sometimes people get confused with nonetheless because we don't see that a lot in Indian English. So nonetheless is in spite of. So it is a transition word. It needs a precedent. Okay, so this can't be a starter statement. Now, out of the sentences that we've read 1 and 2. Do you link with 3? Because it has a transition word. Do you think that either 1 or 2 can come before 3? Ignore 4, we haven't read it. But do you think either 1 or 2 can come before 3? Okay, Nitin says 1, 3. Okay, other answers, please let me know. Yeah, Raghavendra, that's fine. My question here is, we have nonetheless. Okay. Can 1 or 2 come before 3 is what I'm asking. Okay, let's look at it. Nonetheless, the sum of all neurons in the nervous system generate complex human emotions like fear and joy, none of which can be attributed to a single neuron. See, there's definitely a connection between 1 and 3. 1 is saying that no single neuron holds complex information. 3 is saying that none of which can be attributed to a single neuron. So there's definitely a connection between 1 and 3. Either it has to be 1, 3 or 3, 1. But we have nonetheless, right? Nonetheless is a transition word. Now, if you read 1, 3, it makes sense. See, 1 is saying, like the ants that make up a colony, no single neuron holds complex information. And it stops there. 3 continues and says, none of which can be attributed to a single neuron. So, okay, rather, let me repeat this. 1 says no single neuron holds complex information. 3 continues saying sum of all neurons in the nervous system generate complex human emotions. So when I was reading 1, if you remember, we drew an inference from 1, right? No single neuron holds complex information, so it potentially means there has to be a collection of neurons because it's comparing it to ants. 3 is making that information explicit. What was implicit in 1 becomes explicit in 3, and therefore 1, 3 is a consecutive link. And also, nonetheless, is a transition word, so it makes perfect sense. So 1, 3 is definitely a consecutive link here. All right, but we still haven't identified the starter. It can be either 1, 2, or potentially 4 as well. Let's read 4. Human consciousness is often called an emergent property of the human brain. When you're identifying starter statements, one very strong indicator of a starter statement is a generic statement. Starter statements are typically generic, not always. But typically they are generic and they don't have pronouns. Out of all the 4 statements, 4 is the most generic statement, and 4 is the starter here. Okay, so now we have 4, which is the starter, and 1, 3, which is the consecutive link. What are the possible options? Tell me. Let's go to step 3, the last step. Let's evaluate the possible options and we'll do a versus. Can you tell me? 4 is the starter and 1, 3 is the consecutive link. What are the possible options here? Four, 1, 3, 2 or 4, 2, 1, 3. These are the possible options. 4 is the starter, 1, 3 is a consecutive link. Okay, we have eliminated this. It can't be this. So it's 4, 1, 3, 2 or 4, 2, 1, 3. Now read both of them and tell me which flow makes more sense. You should do a versus. 4, 1, 3, 2 or 4, 2, 1, 3. There's only 2 possible combinations. Which one makes more sense? Evaluate it. Now, if you look at 2, 2 sounds like a conclusion. Okay, where it's saying that human brain is not yet enough to identify the mechanism. by which emergence functions. Emergent was spoken about in 4. Okay, so there is a correction. But most neurobiologists agree that complex interconnections among the parts give rise to qualities that belong only to the whole. This idea has been explored in 1 and 3. The parts coming together as a whole. That's what the discussion is about neurons. And emergence is connected to 4. So the answer here is 4, 1, 3, 2. 2 is a very good concluding statement. Okay. 4, 2, 1, 3 is also attractive because that emergence can connect 4 immediately, but it doesn't have to be consecutive, right? 2 has to come after 4. And here, if you place 2 at the end, it makes more sense because it wraps up everything. It refers to emergence, which has been discussed in 4, and it refers to parts and whole, which has been discussed in 1 and 3. All right, so the answer is 4, 1, 3, 2. Okay. All right. Raghav is saying I'm not able to see the link between 4, 3. 4, 3, 4, 3. Or 4, 1. Human consciousness is often called an emergent property of the human brain. Okay. Like the ants that make up a colony, no single neuron holds complex information like self-awareness. Nonetheless, the sum of all neurons in the nervous system generate complex human emotions. All right. So, Raghav, all of this that we're talking about, right? Self-awareness, hope, pride, fear, joy, that is all a part of human consciousness, isn't it? That's the connection. Human consciousness is the umbrella term that will encompass everything else that we're talking about. That is how it's connected. Okay. So that's how it is connected. I hope it makes sense. So it's being used as an umbrella term there. Okay. All right. 4-2 seems to be a better connection as the complex interconnections brings the idea about neurons, as otherwise neurons is directly talked about. Yeah, Rishabh, see, I don't deny it, and that's why I said it's tricky, right? 4-2 could be something that makes sense because you have emergence that connects it and all of that. But I'll tell you what, and it's tricky. This is very tricky, and sometimes Parajumbles do get tricky, right? 4-2-1-3 is quite close, but 2, if you think about it, it's a very good concluding statement, right? It says complex interconnections among the parts give rise to qualities. All of that's been explored in 1-3. The emergent part has also been. So if you place 2 at the end, it sums up everything. Emergence and the parts and whole connection. So that's why 2 is a better concluding statement. Okay, although 4-2-1-3 is definitely close. Okay, all right. Let's go to the next one. We'll solve an odd one out now. We'll pick up speed now. We'll have to end the session in half an hour. So odd one out, again, here we'll run a poll. It's similar to a Parajumble, but of course in an odd one out, you don't have to figure out the entire sequence. All right. So in odd one out, the tip that I can give you is focus on theming. Sometimes you can just theme and then figure out the sentence that doesn't follow the theme. So you don't have to solve the entire sequence. Identifying the theme and a couple of links, 1 or 2 links can bring you to the answer. Okay, so keep that in mind. And when you're identifying the theme, don't go for a broad theme because a broad theme will cover everything. The theme has to be specific. Okay, we'll discuss more when we solve the first question. But let me run the poll. I can only give you 4 options in the poll because that's how YouTube restricts it. But if the answer is 5, you can type it in chat. Okay. Right. So the odd one out according to you is 5, then type it in chat. Okay, let's take 30 more seconds and let's wrap it up. Rishabh, 5 is not listed because YouTube doesn't give me an option to have more than 4 options in the poll. So if 5 is the answer, just type it in chat. All right, last 10 seconds, people. Okay. All right, so you can see how you voted. Of course, there are some people who voted for 5, so I'll take that into account. Your first choice seems to be 3. Okay. Then your second choice seems to be 5. All right. Then you have 1, and then you have 2 and 4. Okay, this is how you voted. Now let's look at it. So see, for odd one out, I told you to focus on the theme, right? Typically in odd one out, you wouldn't have to solve the whole question, as in the whole sequence. In some complicated cases, you do have to do that. Okay, but usually you don't need to do that. So first, we'll read each and every sentence. We'll try to figure out the theme, and we'll try to make some links. Typically, identifying the theme plus a couple of links or one link can lead you to the answer. Okay, let's look at it. Self-care particularly links to loneliness, behavior problems, and negative academic outcomes. Okay, so the statement is coming out of nowhere, and it can confuse you, right? Because usually when you think of self-care, you think of caring for the self, right? Sleeping on time, exercising, skincare, anything, right? So it might sort of cause a little bit of confusion here, but of course we know that this is not that self-care. But here the self-care says it links to loneliness, behavioral problems, and academic outcomes, right? So we're not talking about general humans. We're clearly talking about students here. Okay, let's continue. Latchkey children refers to children who routinely return home from school to empty homes and take care of themselves for extended periods of time. So this is introducing a term called latchkey children. Who are latchkey children? Who return from school to an empty home and fend for themselves. But just trying to extract some broad sense. Although self-care generally points to negative outcomes, it is important to consider that the bulk of research has yet to track long-term consequences. Okay, good. So self-care generally points to negative outcomes. This is related to one, but it's saying it's important to consider that the bulk of research is yet to track long-term consequences. So usually it points to negative outcomes, but we don't have long-term research. Okay, we are yet to track long-term consequences, seems connected to one. Let's continue. In research and practice, the phrase children in self-care has come to replace latchkey in an effort to more accurately reflect the nature of the circumstances. Now see here, when you're looking at odd one out, right, we have to identify the theme. Also look for the most obvious links. Most obvious links. When you read 4, do we have a link with 4 so far? Don't consider 5. In what you've read, do you see an obvious link with 4? Tell me. Can you form an obvious link with 4 out of 1, 2, 3, 4? 2, right? It's quite obvious. It's quite obvious. Here it says, what is the definition of latchkey children? And here it says the phrase children in self-care has come to replace that term. 2, 4 is definitely a consecutive link. Okay. And if 2, 4 is a consecutive link, it can't be the odd one out. Because you're saying it's a link, right? So how can it be the odd one out? For an odd one out, it has to be not, or rather, for something to be an odd one out, for a sentence to be an odd one out, it doesn't have to be a part of the sorry, I'm getting confused with the language here. If 2, 4 is a pair, it can't be the odd one out. That means it's a part of the paragraph, right? Okay. So that means 2 and 4 is gone. Now it's the option is either 1, 3, or 5. The answer has to be 1, 3, or 5. Let's continue. Although parents might believe that self-care would be beneficial for development, recent research has found quite the opposite. Okay, so parents think it's for development, but recent research tells us it's opposite. It's not beneficial, it's harmful. Okay, all right. So now we have 1, 3, and 5. It is a little tricky to identify the odd one out. This is where you'll have to think about the theme. Now, if you take a broad theme like self-care, everything will fit. So that's why we don't do that. We have to pick a granular theme. Now look at it. Now tell me one thing, answer this in chat. In the rather not in the 5 sentences, in the paragraph, okay, do you think the view towards self-care is negative or positive? Just tell me that. What do you think? Generally, does the view seem to be negative or positive? Negative, right? Is there a statement that kind of doesn't adhere to the negative theme completely? Is there a sentence that doesn't adhere to the negative theme completely? 3. Good. 5. Okay, 5. Okay, let's explore 5. Although no, see, 5 is still negative, people, because parents believe that self-care would be beneficial, but the parents are wrong, is what 5 is saying. Right? That's a belief, right? And that belief has been contradicted in the sentence itself. So 5 is negative. That's a parent's belief, but the research clearly says it's opposite. So 5 is negative. 3 has hope. 3 has hope. See, says although self-care points to negative outcomes, we don't have research for long-term consequences. Might be positive. So the positive touches in 3, and that's why 3 is the odd one out. 1, 2, 4, 5 are all on the negative end. 3 is the only statement that brings in a positive angle, and therefore 3 is the odd one out. And also, if you look at it, okay, 2, 4 is a link. 5, 1 is also a link. All the parents believe that it would be beneficial. Research finds quite the opposite. And then 1 tells you that it is the opposite. It leads to problems. So 2, 4, 5, 1 are links. The theme is negative. 3 is positive. And hence 3 is the odd one. It's a little tricky. Okay, it is tricky. But here, the learning for you is when you're picking a theme, don't go for a broad theme. A broad theme, everything is going to fit. When a question setter sets it, I also set these questions. The odd one out always relates to the broad theme. You have to go specific. Okay, it's not going to be that easy. And a theme plus 1 or 2 links should lead you to the answer in most cases. All right. Okay, nice one. Yeah, I agree. It's a tricky one. Go for this one. Again, if the answer is 5, send it in the poll. No, send it in the chat. If the answer is 5. Bhartik, that was pretty quick. Okay. Usually these questions cannot be solved that quickly. So I'm not saying it's the wrong answer. Okay, but it was pretty quick. So just make sure that you followed the strategy and done your due diligence. Okay. Okay, let's take about 30 more seconds, people, just in the interest of time, and then we'll start discussing. Okay, last 10 seconds. Oh, let's look at it. Now, this is how you voted. 58% of you are saying 2. Okay. So this was your first choice. 33% is saying 3. There were some takers for 5 as well. And then 1 is 8%. Okay. So probably I'll mark this as a third choice as well. No takers for 4. Okay. Let's look at it. So theme plus 1 or 2 links. Okay. The banning of Northern Lights could be considered a precursor to censoring books for moral, worldview, or religious reasons. Okay, so some banning is happening. Okay, and clearly Northern Lights is a book. It says to censoring books for moral, precursor to censoring books for moral, worldview, or religious reasons. All right. Attempts to ban books are attempts to silence authors who have summoned immense courage in telling their stories. So there's a 2 and 1 seem to be connected, right? Because we're talking about banning of books. This talks about Northern Lights being banned, and it's a precursor. And year 2 says attempts to ban books are attempts to silence authors who have summoned immense courage in telling their stories. Okay. Now the banning and challenging of books in the US has escalated to an unprecedented level. So this is also about banning books, but it's talking about the US. The widely acclaimed fantasy novel Northern Lights was banned in some parts of the US and was the second most challenged book in the US. Okay, so 4 and 1 seem to be connected. But again, just because it mentions Northern Lights, okay, 4 is not the answer, so you can rest easy. But 4 and 1, just because it has Northern Lights, don't just immediately jump to the conclusion saying that they're a pair. Okay, there can be a trick there as well. So we'll keep that in mind. The American Library Association documented an unparalleled number of reported book challenges in 2002, about 2,500 unique titles. Okay, so this is also talking about America. Okay, all right. Now, the thing is, when you look at this theme, banning books can't be a theme because then everything will fit. It has to be more specific than that, right? So we'll keep that in mind. Can you spot any obvious links here? Like the most obvious link, if I ask you, what is the most obvious link here? What is the most obvious link? No, obvious link, as in you have to give me numbers. 2 and 5, since they both talk about challenging. 2 and 5 both talk about challenging? Or is it 3 and 5? Chaitanya, did you mean 3 and 5? 2 doesn't talk about challenging, no? 3 and 5. Okay, 3 and 5. Now look at 3 and 5. Let's evaluate what Chaitanya is saying. Now the banning and challenging of books in the US has escalated to an unprecedented level. Isn't 5 giving you about data about 3? 5 is giving you more data about 3, right? Details about 3. Banning of books has gone to an unprecedented level. 5 gives you details, numbers. 2002, about 2,500 unique titles. 3-5 is a very good consecutive link. Well done, Chaitanya. Okay, well done, Pratibha. 3-5 is actually a good link because 5 is giving you more data about 3. That general to specific is a very common flow. 3-5 is a consecutive link. Okay, so that's not the answer. Okay, 4 we've already ignored. Now we're left with 1 and 2. Okay, you can say that 1 is connected to 4, but we have to be a little careful with that. Okay, now what is 1 saying? Censoring books for moral, worldview, or religious reasons. And 2 is saying summoned immense courage in telling their stories. Do you think 1 and 2 is connected? Or rather, let me ask you, what is the difference between 1 and 2? Is there a difference? Is there a difference there in 1 and 2? Of course, they both talk about banning books. But you have to go deeper than that. Is there a difference? Read the sentences and tell me. One is more broader, 2 is specific. No, that's too generic, Chaitanya. I want to go deeper and tell me. This answer has to be more specific. There is a difference between 1 and 2. Read the sentences again. Critically evaluate 1 and 2 and tell me, are they really talking about the same thing? Or is there a difference there? There is actually a significant difference. Read it again. They challenge each other. How? Pratibha, how? Author and books. Okay. Not every book of author will be banned and hence author is a silence. Okay. 1 is a genre, 2 is about authors. Okay, Muthu, I think you're getting there. You're getting there. Okay. Look at 1. What are the reasons for banning? Moral, worldview, or religious reasons? Think about it, right? If I write a book being critical about a particular religion, it could be banned. If I write a book which is against standard moral or what is perceived as morality, it could be banned. 1 is talking about banning books due to impersonal reasons. 2 is talking about silencing authors who are telling their stories. These are 2 totally different genres, right? In 2, authors are being silenced, the authors that are telling their stories. But 1 is not talking about specific authors. It's talking about banning books because of moral, worldview, or religious reasons. It's completely different. Correct, Rishabh? Are you with me, folks? For instance, let's say, let's talk about Vijay Mallya, for instance, right? Now, Vijay Mallya, let's say, no, not Vijay Mallya, that's a horrible example. Somebody who's been, who was this guy? The WikiLeaks guy. Forgot his name. I can't believe I forgot his name. Who's that WikiLeaks guy? Can somebody tell me? The guy who had to run away from the US because the government and law was after him. If he sort of tells his story and then he's silenced, that's the author being silenced. But here 1 is talking about other reasons for banning books. So the reasons are very different. Okay. And because 1 has a very strong connection with 4, 2 is the odd one out. It can either be 1 or 2. 1 and 2 can't be a part of the same paragraph because the reason for banning books is very different. Okay. The reason why we're choosing 2 is because 1 has a very strong connection with 4. That's why 2 becomes the odd one. Okay. Julian Assange, correct. The theming of books, the theme here is banning books for moral, worldview, or religious reasons, generally speaking. We're not talking about life stories and authors writing their life stories and then the books, them getting silenced. That's a totally different situation. So hence the answer is 2. Okay, 1 clearly has a very strong connection with 4. So 1, 4 is a pair, 3, 5 is a pair, and therefore 2 becomes the odd one out. That's also one way of solving odd one out questions. If you can identify 2 pairs, you know that the remaining statement is odd one out. Okay. All right. Let's go to this one quickly, folks. We'll do para completion and then we'll wrap up the session. By the way, if you're a non-2IIM student, we have a crash course for CAT 24 that is starting on 12th of August. It will cover the entire course for CAT 24 in live classes. Okay, so although it's a crash course, it'll cover the entire course. Of course, you'll have classes every day and more number of hours and all of that. So in an expedited format. It also has all the content, self-paced content. It also includes mocks, and it also includes GDPR training. So it's a fantastic deal. It starts from 12th August. You'll get the details in chat, so you can check it out. There are discounts available as well. And we also have a test series. So you can enroll for the test series separately as well. There is a coupon code for test series as well. So both the details you'll get on chat. If you're interested, you can enroll, you can contact our team and get more details. Okay. Is there a way to go through the crash course without the hard copy books? Yes, there is. There should be. Generally, see, Raghu, what happens is when you join a live course at 2IIM, right? The hard copy books come along with it, right? But if you don't want the hard copy books, I think our team can sort of look, sort of adjust the price accordingly. I'm not sure. So either you'll get a response on chat or just contact our team. Okay, you'll get the details on chat. They'll send you the contact details. You can email info@2im.com or contact our phone numbers and they'll help you out. But I think there is a way to do that. Okay. So yeah, just get in touch with the team. We'll send you the contact details on chat. Sure. Harshwin or Abhishek, if you're listening, I'm talking to my team. Send the contact details, please, so that they can Raghu Vamsi can call up tomorrow if he needs to. There you go. Okay, people take 30 more seconds. Of course, I'll touch on the strategy when we solve the first question. Oh, thank you. I am trying to be. I think it's a light. I have this small light that I have to put on for the sessions because otherwise the lighting in my room is very bad. That causes me to sweat a little bit. Otherwise, the weather in Hyderabad is very pleasant. All right, people, I'm going to give you 10 more seconds and then let's wrap it up. Yeah, Vizag, I'm sure Vizag is probably humid around the year, right? Because it's a coastal region. Hyderabad usually is not humid. And now we've gotten really lucky this year with the weather. It's been very pleasant. Yeah, so, but yeah, Vizag, I know. Chennai is also like that, right? Okay, I'm ending the poll now. Okay, so here's how you voted, right? 62% are saying the answer is 2. Okay, um, followed by 1, right? No takers for 3 and 4. The answer is either 1 or 2. Okay, so that's good. Let's look at it. Now, I'll give you the strategy quickly. Just hear me out. See, in para completion, one thing that you should definitely do is when you read the sentence, right? Try to extract some sense out of the sentence, because the sentence is coming out of nowhere. You will not fully understand it, but extract some sense out of it. That's very important. And once you've extracted some sense out of it, before even looking at the paragraph, think about the preceding and succeeding sentence. Broadly, what could come as a preceding thing? What could come after this? Guess. Create some shadow answer and then look at the paragraph. So I'll demonstrate that. Let's look at the sentence. It's a complicated sentence, right? Dualism was long held as the defining feature of developing countries, in contrast to developed countries, where frontier technologies and high productivity were assumed to prevail. So dualism was long held as the defining feature of developing countries. Long held. Okay, that means it was believed for a very long time that dualism was the defining feature of developing countries. I'm saying it was believed for a very long time. The succeeding sentence, think about it, could perhaps talk about how that is no longer the case. Right? Because think about it. It says it was long held. It was believed for a very long time that dualism was the defining feature. So potentially the succeeding sentences can say that that is no longer the case. Does that make sense? And this is a guess that I'm purely making out of looking at the sentence. Of course, I've looked at the question, but when I was solving it, this is the thought that I had in my head. So I'm just saying, does that make sense to you? Because generally when we say long held, typically we say that, okay, it's been believed for a very long time, but now that's changing. Does it make sense, people? You should be familiar with how long held is used. So it is typically used like that. A belief that has been held for a very long time, but now it's changing. Okay, so think about the succeeding and preceding sentences. The succeeding sentence here could perhaps talk about how this is not the case. Okay. Okay. Also, let's understand the sentence. In contrast to developed countries. So dualism is a feature of developing countries. It's not a feature of developed countries, is what the sentence is saying. And in developed countries, frontier technology and high productivity are assumed to prevail. And that's why dualism is not a feature of developed countries. We don't know what dualism is, that's fine. But it is comparing developed to developing countries, saying dualism was considered as a feature of developing countries, not so much as of a developed country. Okay, all right, let's go now. 1, all right, okay, the opening sentence. At the core of development economics lies the idea of productive dualism, that poor countries' economies are split between a narrow modern sector that uses advanced technologies and a larger traditional sector characterized by very low productivity. Isn't this sentence defining dualism? We don't know what dualism is from reading the sentence, right? See, when we say dualism in a general sense, you're talking about two aspects, general sense. But here the sentence defines dualism. And then when you're looking at this sentence, and we were supposed to guess the preceding sentence also, right? Potentially the preceding sentence should define what dualism is. So here it says, what is dualism? It defines that. Poor countries' economies are split between a narrow modern sector that uses advanced technology and a larger traditional sector characterized by very low productivity. It's defining dualism. That means in a poor country, let's say developing country, like India. India is considered as a developing country, right? So very small sector is modern and uses advanced technologies, but a very large sector uses traditional approach. Traditional sector. So modern is very small, traditional is very big. That's the dualism in developing economies. It defines dualism. Okay. Then it says, while this distinction between developing and advanced economies. Now, isn't there a gap here? What distinction? If I leave 2 as it is, the distinction is not clear, right? But the sentence that has been given clearly identifies that distinction. So if I put this into this sentence, makes complete sense. Otherwise, this distinction is a gap which has not been filled. And now look at that sentence. We guess that that belief is probably no longer held. That's what 2 is saying. While this distinction between developing and advanced economies may have made sense in the 1950s and 60s, it no longer appears to be very relevant. And that was our guess, that this belief was long held, but potentially it's not the reality anymore. That's what the sentence is saying. It fits beautifully into. 1 defines dualism. 2 tells you that how this belief was long held, that it's a feature of developing countries. After that, the succeeding sentence tells you it's no longer the case. So it fits in 2. It can't fit in 1 because you need the definition of dualism to come first and then you put the sentence. And also this distinction will not make sense if you leave that gap in 2. So there is a gap in 2, definitely. If you can identify a gap, you know that the sentence goes there. All right. Okay, so the answer is 2. Now, the strategy that I want you to remember is, of course, there are more parts to the strategy, but what I want you to remember is think of the preceding and succeeding sentence, take a broad guess, and then look for gaps. If you don't see a gap, eliminate it. If you see a gap, try to fit that sentence and see if it makes sense. All right. Okay, let's quickly do this one. Because the topic is very, like, it's funny, but it is about kissing. But it's a weird paragraph. You'll see that. I'll run the poll. Of course, the titles that I give don't matter because in CAT you won't get that. It's just for our reference. Okay, we'll quickly do it. I think I'm running out of energy. Quickly wrap this up. Please do like the stream if you're enjoying it. And then I do this every Friday. You can check out the previous sessions also on our channel. Next Friday, we won't have a session. I'm not around. So we'll give 1 gap and then we'll start with slot 3. So every Friday at 8 p.m. Okay. We're done with slot 1 and slot 2 now today. We'll finish slot 3 after a week's gap. It's been horrendous in UP. Yes. I agree. That's why I said Hyderabad got like really lucky because other parts of the country are really suffering, right? UP, Kerala, it's been horrendous. So, I mean, I can't even imagine the, that sort of severity. We've gotten very lucky with the weather. It's rained, but it's not been extreme. It's been pleasant. Even Chennai has had like, I think, a bouts of extreme weather. But I think Kerala, UP have been like really horrible this year. Yeah, my motivation idea, you're correct. 1 is defining dualism. 2 is using dualism in the context of the sentence. Absolutely correct. In Chennai, every evening it's raining for the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And the thing about Chennai is it gets worse in October, November, right? Those are the months that are really scary for Chennai. The flooding and the rains that happen, especially in November. So I hope this year, because you folks have gotten rains, This time I hope it's not as bad as always. But yeah, clearly climate change is, is wreaking havoc. Okay, people, 30 seconds. We'll close it. All right, last 10 seconds. Yeah, no rain or extreme rain. Correct. I agree. I think it's just extreme, right? In Chennai. Either it gets no rain and it gets extremely hot and humid, or if it rains, then it rains like, I mean, even saying cats and dogs is an understatement for that flooding that happens, right? Okay, people, I'm closing the poll now. Okay. Right. Now, there is a significant majority in this question. 83% of you are saying 2 is the answer. Okay. Using the wrong pen. 16% is saying 3 is the answer. Okay. So again, you picked either, and the correct answer is one of them. All right. So let's look at a sentence. See, it starts with and. Okay. So obviously it can't be in the beginning, and there's no option in the beginning also. And probably much earlier, moving the documentation for kissing back 1,000 years compared to what was acknowledged in the scientific community. It's a weird sentence. You can't really understand much about it, but extract some broad sense out of it. And probably much earlier. Keep that in mind. Talks about documentation for kissing. Okay. 1,000 years compared to what was acknowledged in the scientific community. Extract some broad sense out of it. And think about the preceding and succeeding sentences, right? See, it's saying and probably much earlier. So that means the preceding sentences should perhaps talk about some kind of timeline, right? Because it's saying and probably much earlier. And say moving the documentation 1,000 years compared to what was acknowledged. So some kind of timeline has to be spoken about in the preceding sentence. Okay. Succeeding, we can't really guess here. So you won't be able to guess preceding and succeeding always. Try to guess one of them or both of them. So here some kind of timeline has to be mentioned in the preceding sentences, right? And let's now read the paragraph. Researchers hypothesized that the earliest evidence of human lip kissing originated in a very specific geographical location in South Asia 3,500 years ago. Okay. Now the timeline has come into picture. Let's see if it can we can fit it in one. And probably much earlier, moving the documentation for kissing back 1,000 years compared to what was acknowledged in the scientific community. Okay, so it says that if we fit it in one, what we are trying to say is that it's probably much earlier than 3,500 years, right? But the documentation part won't make sense if you put it in one. All right, so let's see. One could be a potential answer. Let's continue. From there, it may have spread to other regions. Now, see, there is no gap here. Always identify gaps, right? There is no gap in one. It's saying it originated in a very specific location in South Asia 3,500 years ago. From there, it may have spread to other regions. There's no gap in one. So don't try to force fit the sentence. There's no gap, right? Continue. May have spread to other regions, simultaneously accelerating the spread of the herpes simplex virus 1. According to Dr. Trollspank, blah, 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 who in a new article in the journal Science drawn a range of written sources from the earliest Mesopotamian societies, kissing was already a well-established practice 4,500 years ago in the Middle East. See, the first sentence is saying 3,500. The next sentence is saying 4,500. There is a gap of 1,000. Okay. So now if you put that sentence here and probably much earlier, moving the documentation for kissing back 1,000 years, that makes sense. The 1,000 years makes sense there. And it's saying it could have been much earlier than 4,500. But for now, we're moving it back 1,000 years. So general belief in the scientific community was it was 3,500. This sentence says 4,500. That gap of 1,000 is being spoken about in this sentence. And it's saying that it could have been much earlier. So that's why it fits in 2. Makes sense there. Okay. Then let's see 3. In ancient Mesopotamia, people wrote in cuneiform script on clay tablets, many thousands of these clay tablets. There is no gap in 3, right? So you have to identify if there is no gap, don't try to force fit the sentence. If it flows seamlessly, there is no gap. So you can't fit the sentence. There's no gap in 3 for you to fit that. And in 2, it fits perfectly because that 1,000 years makes sense because of 3,500 and 4,000. All right, so the answer is 2. Okay. All right, folks. So we'll call it a day now. I'm getting exhausted, but I hope you enjoyed the session. Definitely like the stream. If you're interested, you can join the crash course, mock series if you're a non-2IM student. And if you have any more questions about VRC or in general what we've discussed, you can put it in comments and I'll get back to you. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next session, which will be after a week. Not the next week, but the week after this. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Bartik. See you. Bye.